it's magic. It's a magic place. I think you probably will agree. So I had to buy it. It's, I think, a magic place. Usually it's not for sale. The owner was an old lady just living here in the corner of the same street. So I visited her. We had a nice conversation. We have been talking like 6 hours about Spanish Civil War and stories, and she wanted to talk. And after I told her I want to buy a property, we agreed a price, and I gave her a check. And when she received the check, I asked her for a receipt. And we just took the paper, which is over her glass of water, like a napkin. I took the napkin, did write the receipt, was a contract, the receipt. And so the house has been sold.
And the deal was done?
Yeah.
Extraordinary story.
Yeah.
Continuing my journey, I'm bound for the final destination on this trip, Seville. It sits 90 kilometers inland from the Atlantic coast on the banks of the river Guadalquivir and is the capital of Andalusia.
It feels like a big, thriving city. It's got one of the biggest cathedrals in the world, royal and ducal palaces. And all this is based upon the fact that in the 16th century, Seville was one of the most important cities in the world because it was here that the wealth from the Americas came in. It all arrived at the port in Seville. And as well as the silver that financed the expanding Spanish Empire, you had plants, potatoes, tomatoes, squashes, dahlias, sunflowers. These new plants that we now take for granted came here to Seville and then were spread out across the rest of Europe.
Seville is very well known for its royal gardens. But on this trip, as part of the process of trying to get under the skin of Spain through its gardens, I'm visiting 2 privately owned palaces, both with a long and entwined history.
The Casa de Pilatos was begun in 1483 by the nephew of King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella. Now, the Moors were still here in Andalusia, so their influence was absolutely dominant. So even though he was a Christian, this opening patio is completely Moorish. And there's not a trace of a plant here. This is certainly not a garden. However, the reason why he chose this site was because there was water. And when you have water, you can have a garden.
The garden consists of 2 courtyards. The smaller one is typically Andalusian. It's bright and colourful and filled with pots crammed rim to rim alongside the basins whose surface is constantly broken by the fountains that spill gently into them.
What was unusual about this garden was that the water supply didn't come from the famous Moorish irrigation systems that actually were spread all over Andalusia, but from a Roman aqueduct. And the right to take the water from the aqueduct was very rare indeed. It was a special privilege. So, as a result, they could make a garden. And in fact, the garden has been open from day one, but not to admire the garden, but so people could come and collect water.
The Casa de Pilatos is one of a number of properties owned by the Medinaceli Foundation, which was formed by the last person to live here, the Duquesa de Medinaceli. But it still has very strong links to the family, and the Duquesa's granddaughter, Sol, Condesa de Ampurias, still lives nearby.
Tell me, what's your earliest memory of here?
Earliest memory here? Well, I guess I think I remember when after school, so we would go to school from 9 to 3, and we would come to play in the garden.